Have you ever heard of the Asch conformity experiments? Basically, one test subject is put into a room with multiple actors. The test subject doesn't know that the other people are all actors. Another person enters the room and will ask the group a series of questions with an obvious answer. For example, what is 2 plus 2? The actors all give incorrect answers, such as 3 or 5. Oddly enough, in many instances, the test subject doesn't give the correct answer, 4. Instead, in order to make sure they fit in with the rest of the group, which again are all actors, the test subject will give an incorrect answer. It's honestly a pretty concerning result that popped up multiple times during these experiments. To me, what this actually says is, despite our instinctual inclination to feel like a unique individual within our society, human beings have a burning desire to agree with their peers.
I think a lot of us fall victim to this paradigm more than we'd probably care to admit, too. I know I've been in situations where I was the lone individual of a group with a differing view from the rest of them. And not just for feeling of acceptance, it led me to feeling a huge amount of doubt in my own answers and opinions.
And if that's the case, what are we left with when we take a person's feelings on a piece of media and smush them down into a single digit? What are we left with when we take hundreds of those digits and aggregate them on sites like IMDb or Metacritic?
And what the hell does this all have to do with video games?
Earlier this year, I really found the conversation around Crimson Desert equally intriguing as I did concerning. For weeks prior to the game's launch, people were hyping up Crimson Desert as a clear Game of the Year nominee and the next big titan of open world games. People were talking about Crimson Desert like it was going to be the new Breath of the Wild or Witcher 3 or Elden Ring. But immediately after that 78 hit Metacritic, those same people began chastising and scrutinizing every single minute detail of the game that they were just praising a week prior. It's herd mentality at its finest.
And yet, as of the time of writing this, millions of people put their money where their mouth is and still purchase Crimson Desert.
And honestly, I love that people bought Crimson Desert because it's an incredibly rare instance of people choosing to form their own opinion before automatically aligning with the majority opinion. Far too often do we see consumers determining their media consumption based on review scores.
And that's not to say this is entirely unjustified. We all suffer from having more and more of our limited time and money being taken away by work, chores, bills, and more, so making an informed purchase is important. But a single number only tells a small fraction of the story.
And it's not just consumers either. People within the industry fear these numbers as well. An infamous example is when Bethesda promised Obsidian employees a large bonus if Fallout New Vegas hit an 85 on Metacritic. When New Vegas received an 84, that bonus was, of course, never given. And to go back to Crimson Desert, it was reported that the developer's stock price plummeted 40% immediately after the reviews hit.
Of course, stock traders are notoriously not the most knowledgeable on the intricacies of the industries they trade in, but that doesn't change the fact that review scores often have large impacts on both the individual developers and the companies that employ them.
And let's be honest, these types of things affect jobs. They affect if people are employed or not. So it's not just the fans, but the people on the inside who care so much about review scores. Why?
To some extent, it's just part of the human experience, and honestly the nature of how language works. We love to label, categorize, list, rank, compare, and scrutinize everything. I mean, there's a reason that despite constant scrutiny, WatchMojo has stayed such a staple of YouTube for millions of people. Inevitably, this leads us to shrinking down complex feelings and nuanced views into easily digestible phrases or even simply just a number. After recently playing through Resident Evil Requiem, Dylan and I both shared our list of how we would rank the entire Resident Evil series. While this was of course a fun and quick way to get a glimpse of how both of us thought of the newest entry, it also loses those important details of why one title gets put above another, why Resident Evil 6 is way down at the bottom, and why two versions of 3 differ so wildly.
And why Resident Evil 1 was easily trounced by 2, right?
Yeah, sure, bud. I've never been particularly fond of review scores myself. Part of that stems from my childhood where I was subscribed to at least 1 to 2 gaming magazines at any given time. I loved reading the articles about upcoming releases and then getting to the back half of the magazine with all the reviews. But what I quickly realized is that the number I'd rate a game could vary wildly from what a professional reviewer might say. Now, part of that comes down to the fact that we really can't seem to come to any kind of consensus on what these numbers even mean. While not in the gaming sphere, I've always been a huge fan of Anthony Fantano's scoring system, which I find to be the closest to how I perceive these numbers. A 5 out of 10 is completely in the middle. Not bad, not good, it's inoffensively competent. A 6 then becomes good, with 7 and 8 being great, reserving 9s and 10s only for the best of the best. But then you have an outlet like IGN whose numbers mean something pretty different.
Remember when a 10 out of 10 from IGN truly meant something? Just in the 2020s alone, they've given over 20 games 10 out of 10 ratings. In the prior decades, they were a lot more selective when giving 10 out of 10s, going so far as to give Majora's Mask and Chrono Cross 9.9s. Something that still kind of bothers me to this very day, because what's the difference between a 9.9 and a 10?
Their approach goes for something closer to a grade school numbering system, where a 7 is seen more as a pass, something completely average. It's no surprise then that you almost never see scores lower than a 5, as even a 6 might as well be considered a failing grade for them. Because of this, I've never really found it helpful to give out numbers when I review a game. If I give a game a 6, to me it's a good game that's a little above average, but someone else might think I hated it or even found it to be an unplayable mess.
What makes these numerical scores even more frustrating is that people online can't seem to grasp that an outlet like IGN or Game Informer consist more of just a single person. I'm seeing a lot of people say that IGN's 6 out of 10 review for Crimson Desert makes no sense when compared to their 9 out of 10 Dragon Age The Veilguard review. While yes, Dragon Age The Veilguard is widely considered a subpar game, it's important to remember that these reviews were written by two entirely different human beings with two entirely different histories, backgrounds, and tastes.
Yeah, even on this channel, Dylan and I are two different people and have had differing opinions on the games we've reviewed so far. I don't think we'd have given Donkey Kong Bonanza the same numeric score, which is exactly why the content of our words is so much more important.
And that was honestly one of the biggest reasons I wanted to start this channel with Jared, because we didn't agree on many things. When I find somebody that I disagree with a lot but is still capable of having respectful conversations with me, I get really happy and excited about that. Because it's a rare skill to have. People think that if you disagree with them, you are offending them, but that's just not true. But to go back to numerical scores, even lone reviewers using a numerical scale can sometimes have their scores fall on top of each other. Going back to Fantano, he infamously gave one of the most beloved rap albums of all time a 6 out of 10. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which again is widely considered either a top 3 or the #1 greatest rap album ever crafted. Many years later, he gave a Sexy Red album, which had largely been forgotten within a few weeks, an 8 out of 10. When you put those two scores next to each other, the scale seems really silly.
Of course, once again, all nuance is removed here. Two of my favorite games ever are Shadow of the Colossus and Rocket League. I enjoy both of these games for very different reasons, and I don't think giving them both a 10 out of 10 would really do justice to that distinction.
But again, I think it's important to remember that the words matter far more than the number. The numbers are just there for clicks and engagement. I've even heard stories via podcasts from ex-IGN mainstays that they argued against numerical scores, but the higher-ups wanted the numerical scores to stay for the clicks.
A score, and you don't even know how... being in the trenches of scoring games, it's like, I don't know, man. This is what, it's a 7, I guess. It's a 6, an 8. I really had no, it was just based on a feeling. It's kind of nonsensical. Subjectivity can't be reduced down to numerics like that. And so
it's also important to remember that these critics are coming at the stuff they're reviewing from a totally different angle. For us normies, video games are just a hobby, a pastime. For the critics, it's a job. A massive game like Crimson Desert might cause a ton of reviewers stress due to the huge time commitment.
Time can absolutely be a huge factor. As someone who plays a ton of games every year, a title that has gameplay that is good, but maybe not fully great, is not one that I want to spend 100+ hours in. However, someone else who hasn't played as many games could probably get far more out of a lengthy game.
Of course, as long as everybody is a mature adult who doesn't get offended by other people's opinions, reviewing, ranking, and comparing media is a totally fun thing to do. But just please, remember that nobody's opinion on media matters more than your own.
It can be easy to forget that review scores are just someone else's experience with a game and how that experience compares to all of the games that they have played. It's important to find people you resonate with, whose opinions you understand, even when you don't agree with them. I certainly don't agree with all the takes of every critic or reviewer I follow, or hell, even the guy I share this channel with, but I know their taste well enough to know when a game is not worth my time, or to check out one that I otherwise wouldn't have.
While I didn't love it, I didn't hate the Callisto Protocol nearly as much as other people did, and last year's Deadbeat by Tame Impala was widely considered one of the worst albums of the year, but I still had a good time with it, and that's really all that matters. In a world where you can't go 5 seconds on your phone without being bombarded by strangers' opinions, remember that nobody's opinion should matter more to you than yours.